Back in 2014, Bill Gates shared a stunning fact. China used more cement in just 3 years than the United States did throughout the entire 20th century. That single statistic captures the speed and scale of China's transformation. A nation that turned from an agricultural society into a global superpower in less than half a century. China's rise since the early 1980s stands as one of the most remarkable economic stories of our time. The shift was so fast that entire cities emerged almost overnight. Take Shanghai. Between 1990 and 2010, it evolved from a quiet coastal settlement into one of the largest and most modern metropolises on Earth. This explosive growth has puzzled economists for decades. How could a nation of over 1.4 billion people leap from poverty to industrial dominance, while so many others with similar potential struggled? It wasn't merely population size. India, with a similar number of citizens, didn't experience the same pace of progress. Some say the secret lies in the reforms of the 1980s that opened China to the global market. But South Korea, Japan, and India also liberalized their economies. Others argue it's because of cheap labor and manufacturing exports. Yet many countries with low wages and access to trade never achieved comparable success. So, what exactly made China different? To understand that, we need to break it down to 3 essential pillars: investment, education, and technology. Since the 1980s, China has poured an extraordinary share of its GDP, over 30% annually, into national development. While developed nations like the US or Germany no longer require massive infrastructure spending, China maintained decades of relentless investment across healthcare, housing, transportation, and industry. Perhaps the most visible symbol of this effort is China's infrastructure. The country built the world's largest high-speed rail network, connecting cities thousands of miles apart in record time. From futuristic airports to modern ports and 6-lane highways, the nation's physical transformation has been staggering. This new infrastructure didn't just modernize cities, it created economic lifelines. Goods could now travel faster, costs dropped, and domestic trade flourished. Ports and logistics hubs turned China into a global export machine, enabling faster and cheaper shipping to every continent. But how did China fund such colossal projects? Much of the capital came from foreign direct investment, FDI, and state-owned enterprises, SOEs. To attract foreign investors, China established special economic zones, SEZs, regions offering tax incentives, streamlined regulations, and easy access to global markets. These zones turned sleepy fishing towns like Shenzhen into industrial giants. In a few decades, Shenzhen transformed from a rural village into a city rivaling Silicon Valley. FDI didn't just bring money, it brought knowledge. Western corporations like Apple, Microsoft, and Tesla established operations in China, training a generation of engineers and technicians. Foreign firms introduced management skills, production methods, and international standards that Chinese industries absorbed at lightning speed. Through these partnerships, China didn't merely manufacture, it learned. It integrated global best practices into its own system, adapting them to local strengths. This transfer of expertise became one of the silent engines of China's industrial revolution. While much of the world moved toward privatization, China held firm control over its state-owned enterprises, especially in critical sectors like energy, telecommunications, and transportation. These SOEs acted as the government's tools for executing large-scale national goals. Backed by massive state funding, SOEs handled projects too risky or expensive for private firms. From power grids to high-speed rail networks. The government's ability to coordinate long-term projects ensured that economic growth remained synchronized across regions and industries. By maintaining control over essential industries, China avoided the fragmentation that slowed development elsewhere. Its centralized model allowed for precision planning and unified execution, a hallmark of its rapid modernization. While markets and infrastructure matter, China's most valuable asset turned out to be its people. The government made human capital development a cornerstone of national policy. Massive investments in education, healthcare, and equality reshaped the country's workforce into a competitive global force. Compared with India and other developing nations, China's progress in education was extraordinary. According to the World Bank's Human Capital Index, China scored 0.65, on par with countries like Chile or Slovakia, far ahead of India's 0.49. China also pushed for gender inclusion. Although female workforce participation has dropped from 80% in 1990 to around 62% today, it still remains dramatically higher than India's 25%. This inclusive workforce accelerated productivity, innovation, and overall economic output. Today, China's universities, including Tsinghua and Peking University, rank among the top 20 worldwide. Chinese scientists and engineers now lead in disciplines such as material science, chemistry, and artificial intelligence. This intellectual infrastructure has become a driving force behind the nation's technological edge. Once the foundations were set, infrastructure and education, China focused on mastering technology. Instead of starting from scratch, it followed a strategy of learning by partnership. When foreign companies entered China, the government often required joint ventures with local firms. This policy ensured technology transfer, both legally and through hands-on collaboration. A clear example lies in the high-speed rail sector. In the early days, China relied on Japan's Shinkansen technology and Germany's Siemens systems for design and safety. But rather than staying dependent, Chinese engineers refined and expanded those technologies, creating one of the fastest and safest train networks on Earth. The same model repeated across industries. Volkswagen, for example, partnered with SAIC Motor Corporation, helping China's auto sector rise from imitator to competitor. Within a generation, local manufacturers were building vehicles that met global standards and began exporting abroad. China's focus on R&D investment solidified its leadership. Government funding for research, combined with the rise of domestic giants like Huawei, Alibaba, and Tencent, positioned the country as a global tech powerhouse. Today, China leads in 5G, green energy, quantum computing, and robotics. China's growth isn't just about money or machines. It's about scale and coordination. Dozens of nations have attempted similar reforms, but none have matched the speed or efficiency of China's execution. Every aspect, from government planning to education, innovation, and infrastructure, worked in harmony. It's this synchronization that turned the so-called China miracle into a sustained transformation. Within 2 generations, the country achieved what took others a century. The rise wasn't accidental. It was engineered, step by step, through vision and discipline. China's rapid development can be summed up in 3 pillars: massive investment, strong human capital, and relentless technological advancement. Together, they created a self-reinforcing cycle that lifted hundreds of millions out of poverty and built one of the world's largest economies. While other nations share similar resources or population sizes, few have implemented change with China's precision and persistence. Whether you admire or question its methods, one thing is undeniable. China's transformation reshaped not just its own destiny, but the entire global balance of power.